I'm in Salad, the absolute unit, and this is the new Voidgazers podcast. We have opinions about things and stuff, and now you can subscribe and download the podcast to hear those opinions. The new Voidgazers podcast has a voicemail and a new episode weekly. You gotta call 202-681-8643 or 202-681-VOID. I have a bunch of guests with me. Here I got
Trixie the Golden Witch, the only bitch that's been around since before the Switch and the Nintendo Switch. No, I meant the Switch of the culture. Away and toward. And also, I have a channel called Yig Studio and Patreon.com/GoldenWitchFire.
That's amazing. Also joining us today, we have...
I'm Robin, and I do podcasts and stream.
Awesome. Then we also have...
Hi, I'm Asher. I do freelance editing work occasionally, but I'm more well known for spending all my time watching movies.
That's amazing. You should do some movie reviews. Anyway, how's y'all's week been?
I've spent a lot of time just editing stuff and writing videos and streaming. I've been making a lot of my money through streaming and watching everything in the MCU. Somewhat inspired by you, Mint, because you did this, and I talked about it on the last show, so I'm not gonna have another 45-minute conversation about Marvel on this show. Maybe another time, but
maybe.
But yeah, I've still been watching. I'm about to see Infinity War finally, so I'm like at the big.
Awesome.
I'm at the big fucking climactic moment of the story, pretty much. But yeah, it's been a good time. I want to know what's been going on with Robin's week.
Well, my week, I'm finally over COVID, like all of the last effects, and I've been just getting back into doing things like productively. I've been trying to do podcasts. I've been trying to get my stream going again. That's going to be a lot of fun because I left Elden Ring in the middle of nowhere.
Elden Ring?
Yeah, the gamer game. You ever heard of it? It's a small little indie game.
I've never heard of it.
I'm tempted to believe Mint actually somehow hasn't heard of Elden Ring.
I've heard a lot about it. I mean, didn't you stream it one time?
Oh, I streamed it
a few
lot.
times.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best game.
I've never actually played it myself.
It's just really good.
It is a really good game.
Asher, how's your week been?
It's been good. I haven't been watching as many movies lately, so I've been trying to catch up on that. And I've been watching Hajime no Ippo.
Oh, nice.
I don't know why. It's easily bingeable,
I've never
seen
like or heard of it.
It's a boxing anime. It's pretty fun.
Boxing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it people boxing? Is it like anthropomorphic?
No,
okay.
it's a very normal human type one, but it's like kids getting bullied in school, and then a guy who runs a boxing gym and is like a really badass boxer like sees him and is like, hey, you should stand up for yourself, and teaches him a little bit about boxing, and then he's like, oh shit, I'm strong now, I'm gonna go become a boxer, and then he does, and you follow his whole career.
Speaking of being picked on in school,
Jesus.
Today's episode, we are going to be talking about our LGBTQ experiences. We got Trixie the Golden Witch, and our lives. And our entire lives are very LGBTQ.
But first, we're going to talk about Parasite, right, Mint?
Yeah.
You just saw this movie like last night, I think.
Pretty much. I'd say that.
Asher, you've seen this movie at least once, I assume?
I've seen it like 5 times by now because I keep showing it to new people.
That's perfect. I've seen it once, and Robin, I don't think has seen it at all. So if you could describe what this movie is for her sake really quick.
Okay, so Parasite is a movie about this very poor family who is basically, it's basically your nuclear family makeup. You got the mother, the father, and the sister and the brother. And the brother is visited by an old friend from college, who is moving to a new country, and in the meantime wants the brother to um, uh, uh, tutor this guy's old student, the lady he's tutoring happens to be from a very rich family, and upon realizing that tutoring is extremely easy because this rich family has too much money and does not need to use it well, so they're far too willing to spend as much of it as possible. So this brother decides, oh well, I'm gonna try and slowly bring my entire family into working for this richer family, so I can.
Brilliant idea, by the way.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And he eventually just kind of keeps doing that until his entire family is working for this richer family.
Through a series of manipulations.
Yeah.
He has to get rid of everyone else that is in the family's life. So it kind of plays like this, sort of like a crime, almost like a heist movie in the start.
Yeah.
Where it's all like scheming, and it's very funny. It's almost a comedy movie. But it's got this kind of unnerving quality under it where it's always, are they going to get found out as they try to sneak everybody into working for this rich family.
And some of those manipulations are iconic. Like the whole montage about them giving that lady fake tuberculosis to get her out of the way through peaches is perfect.
Yeah, all I had heard about this movie is that it's like capitalism critique, which is what I guess Korea is known for. So
it definitely has
definitely that.
Yeah, it definitely is not. It doesn't favor the rich of Korea, but it has like a lot of sort of details that are very Korean in nature. Specifically, how the slums are. I like how the caste system is portrayed visually in the movie, because the rich people are on the top of a hill, and the poor people have to live on the bottom of the hill where the water accumulates when it rains too much. It's quite literally a visual caste system.
If you leave your windows open and your house is sub ground, then it's not a good place to live, basically.
Yeah.
Your bathroom is going to be flooded with shit water. That's what's going to happen. Disgusting. Also, awesome imagery with the one, the lady, she's sitting on the toilet while it spews sewage water everywhere, and she's just kind of chilling on her phone.
She needs a cigarette. Cool. She just needs a cigarette for this moment.
Oh yeah, it was a cigarette. Like it reminded me of the Cowboy Bebop girl. What's her name? Faye. Yes, very Faye of her. Yeah.
Yeah, the I guess we don't want to spoil this movie, and you can also listen to Mint's review if you want to hear the entire plot synopsis, but it goes in some wild directions. It's a really great movie that I think the sort of underlying message is like, who is really the parasite on society? Is it the people trying to use the rich, or is it the rich who are using too many resources and just sort of flippantly making things worse for other people with no real understanding of it? Like, they just don't perceive the way that other people live, and like how like difficult life is for someone who just doesn't happen to have a really great job in this world. So it's and it also Oh, okay, I won't say anything else. I literally can't say anything else without spoiling it. But the capitalist critique is definitely interesting and thoughtful, and it leaves you
it's
with
not
like
one-sided.
it's
Yeah,
not
it's not
one-sided.
one-sided.
Yes, that's important, and it's like, because even when you look at like the movie poster, it frames like both families against each other as it's not trying to say one or the other is the parasite by way of the poster. Like it's suggesting that you are meant to be asking yourself this question, or like just viewing all of them as, parasitic upon each other in different ways. And
it's like one of those infinity loop eating its own tail.
It's also very much a
yeah.
conversation starting movie. Like the best way I could describe without spoiling is that like different people come away from it feeling differently about what happens. And I've talked to different people whose read on the movie is totally different, and that fascinates me as well. That like, whether you see it as like a hopeful or a really unhopeful movie really depends on your perspective. Yeah, we've talked about the needing to have a ticket onto the train in Snowpiercer. Like, oh shit, you gotta be rich before the apocalypse happens, or else you're fucked. So, and that I don't even think that's necessarily a wrong takeaway to get from his movies. That like, hey, if you can get rich or die trying, like it's you gotta pick one. You gotta either get rich or die trying, because otherwise, you're just gonna be down there in the fucking in the stink, getting all your shit wrecked all the time, like happens to them.
Well, at least as far as like Parasite goes, the poor people are, as every character in that movie is a parasite. But like the way that poor people become parasites is much more difficult for them than it is for the rich people. The rich people don't think about it. They're parasites on society without even realizing their impact.
Yeah.
Right.
And the poor people are legitimately, they have to fight to be parasites. They have to, that's an effort to them. And again, I like the critique.
They have to become criminals. Like none of them are by
Exactly.
nature criminals, but they're just smart, and it's the only path in front of them that they can logic their way through to some degree, but
Exactly.
yeah. And that's the other thing, like the fact that it really, when the rich family like sort of discovers like how talented the sister and brother are, like I can't help but think, oh man, if only it went in a different direction where like maybe they got introduced to someone, or these guys got them scholarships or something. But it's like they were talented kids. Like they should have been able to have all these opportunities that this rich family has. And like the rich family, the kids are like, they're fine, but they're just normal kids. Like they're not geniuses. There's nothing exceptional about them the way there is about these two poor teens, or young adults. I'm not sure how old they're supposed to be, but like, that's really the part that makes it like the saddest, is that you really see how it's not meritocratic. Like it's not because of the fact that the rich family, the dad has a great job, and yes, I'm sure he went through effort to get that job, but this shows you how like being just smart and good in general wouldn't have been enough, or else these kids would have had opportunities. But they weren't grandfathered in. They had nothing, that brought them into the fold from early enough in life, and they don't understand the rich people in their life. So even though they're there in that world and they're intelligent, they have so little perspective on how to like become this type of person, that it's sort of like they're asking all the wrong questions. Like they're trying to figure out, how do I move my whole family into this house, instead of trying to figure out like, how do I ingratiate myself to these people to the point that they would give my family money? I don't know. Maybe Korean culture wouldn't be like that ever. So it could just be that I'm out of touch with it to even suggest that. But
on top of that, the fact that they left the window open when they were making all those pizza boxes with the pesticide guy, and the dad was like, oh, I get a free pesticide, I'm gonna get rid of my stink bugs. But you also put poison on the pizza boxes where there's going to be food.
when you mentioned this in your review of Parasite, I was amazed because I had never thought of that before. I've seen this movie 5 times and I had never thought, oh yeah, they're just about to poison a bunch of people with those boxes, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, it's so distraught. Like pretty much immediately, I saw that. I was like, okay. First of all of these pizza boxes on the floor. This is a health code violation. I'm pretty immediate. You gotta have your food at least 6 inches off the ground minimum, and this is just on the floor. I wouldn't want to eat a pizza that's on the floor, even if it's in a box. Nonetheless, poisoned. Yummy poison pizza.
Well, I mean, so sort of the point of that scene is to show the dad is it's incompetence. Is a mean word to use, but it's just like they don't know what the hell they're doing. Like they're just trying to do something that seems easy and should make money, but like I've experienced a lot of like how if you don't have the money to just have like the best stuff, like the stuff that just operates and just works, then you're constantly dealing with every little thing that enough money just gets rid of. Like even if I'm thinking about it on like the highest production standard possible, like your access to daylight, right? Like being able to film at the right time of day or under the right weather conditions is extremely difficult, and it can take like such extensive planning and so much money to get the like perfect conditions to do something. And it's like, if you don't have all that money and everything and you just try to get that shot because it exists, then like you get there and everything's going to go wrong because you didn't account for this or that like, that the proper crew that you just pay and they come in and they know how to do everything would have done. And so like, in a case like this, then none of them have been trained in any of this shit. But more importantly, they don't have a space that's conducive to this. And more importantly, they didn't think about the window, because normally he likes having the window open because the free pesticide, but like it doesn't make sense in this context. It's just like, there's so much to account for because everything that like the rich family has just a butler, like just a guy who just takes care of that shit for them. They don't ever close the window or open the window. Someone comes in and opens the window in the morning and closes the window at night. It's not something that they have to account for on top of fucking everything else,
Man, I want a butler. Sorry for the aside. I'm just like, man, if only I could have like pay somebody to open my windows and close my windows exclusively.
If you want to pay,
that would just be their own. Yeah, that'd be your only job. You just open and close windows. Hey, Robin, what do you think about poisoning pizza boxes and leaving the windows open for free pesticides?
Yeah, what was the context of free pesticides from an open window?
So there's a guy. He's blowing something because there's a bunch of bugs.
It's like a street sweeper. Like they're just going around spraying all the houses with like a gas. And since they have the windows open, the gas just floods into their house. And he's like, oh, sick. We're getting free, insect repellent. But like their house is completely filled with poison gas.
Coughing constantly. They just keep coughing. And also the pizza boxes, they're like a quarter of them are folded incorrectly. And after a while of folding like millions of pizza boxes, boom, you get real easy. It's a really easy task to do. Like, honestly. Like, a Domino's employee can do it. I know, because I worked at Domino's once. And I did
Famously.
it for an afternoon. Yeah. But yeah, it's not a hard job. I don't quite get them missing a quarter of everything. They're lucky that they got paid.
I think
also the woman's attitude sucks too, because following that she's like, you're not even gonna pay for my hard work or something like that. It's like you hardly working, more like it.
Yeah, but just give money for jobs. It's easy.
Exactly.
I think the idea with that scene in a lot of the movies kind of meant to suggest that the dad is sort of not all there in the head. Like he he doesn't realize how bad he's fucking up. Like he's just kind of strange. But I don't know what exactly the strangeness is, but yeah.
Speaking of the dad, he's played by Song Kang-ho, who is one of my favorite Korean actors. He has a long history in Korean cinema. He's worked with. Sorry to just bring the trivia in, but this is sort of my expertise as far as like what I know. He's been in he's been in prominent roles for directors such as Bong Joon-ho, obviously, Park Chan-wook, Kim Ji-woo, I believe is the director's name. He's like a big actor in Korea, and obviously this movie has only accelerated his reputation.
Robin, I'm curious. Are you familiar with Korean films in general?
No, I actually don't watch too many movies.
Okay.
Is that new movie that everyone's talking about Korean? The Everything Everywhere All at Once? Is that Korean? I haven't seen it.
That's actually an American film, but it's about a Chinese family, so there's a lot of it's very bilingual. There's a lot of just like interchanging between English and Chinese in the middle of sentence type stuff, but it's mostly in English and takes place in America.
I wish more movies would do the bilingual stuff because I think that's really cool.
It is really cool. The director is like a 2-director pair who did that movie, and they are actually the same guys who directed the "Turn Down for What" music video. If any of you remembers that.
Jesus Christ!
And,
Really? Huh?
Yeah, they had done a bunch of like music videos and short films that like I remember reading like Film Crit Hulk writing about how like these two guys were going to be like revolutionary back like after that music video came out, which I love that fucking video. And I didn't even know it was them until after having seen the movie, and then I found it out and I was like, fucking that makes so much sense. Like the energy is exactly the same with that movie. Like,
sorry, those two also directed one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen with who's the guy who played Harry Potter?
Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Swiss Army Man. That was their last.
Yeah, Swiss Army
film.
Man.
Yeah.
Which was soundtracked. It was soundtracked by Manchester
Orchestra doing entirely a cappella, which is wild. And
yeah, they make weird movies.
So I just like as soon as you started saying and is soundtracked by, I was like, oh yeah, Asher's the only person I know who listens to Manchester Orchestra at all besides me. But yeah, for sure.
I think all the like emos way back really liked Manchester Orchestra for whatever reason.
I one time read a review that described them as, quote, muscular post-emo, and I thought that was perfect.
Oh my god.
It's like, yeah, that's exactly what that is.
It's hard to visualize that.
Well, it's music, so usually it's not easy to visualize.
It's not really a visual medium, you know?
Yeah. Oh, whoops.
No, it's fine. Audiolize. I don't even know if we have a word for like imagining audio. Is there like a that's hard to hear?
Hallucinating.
Hallucinate? Yeah, it's difficult to hallucinate. What's the
condition where like you like smell colors and like you know
synesthesia.
Yeah. Maybe synesthesia.
Smelling colors? I want to smell colors. I wonder what orange smells like.
Probably oranges.
Does it smell like an orange? Or maybe it smells like a weird, funky... I wonder if it'll... Yeah, it might smell like a grape, or it might smell like a banana, even if it's orange. Just because it's color orange doesn't necessarily mean it's going to smell like an orange.
Not that you mix up. It's not that you mix up like one smell for another smell. It's that you would say something like, "Oh, this tastes like blue." Like, this tastes like the color blue, or like, you know, you look at somebody and be like, you know,
you taste red.
Yeah, you taste red. Like, or you hear a sound, and instead of hearing the sound, you just like see a color, and that is your version of the reaction you have. It's just like some kind of weird synapse mix up between senses or something. I don't know how real it is. There's a lot of like speculation about it, but I've dated at least one person who claimed to have synesthetic reactions to certain things.
That's pretty cool.
It's also there's an anime called Kanan, Canaan, where the main girl has synesthesia. Doesn't really amount to much other than that she's really, really good at shooting people, but it's a thing. It's part of the plot.
I have a question. Is Kanan good? Is it like worth checking out?
Okay, so when the show came out, I was really into it. It starts off with so it's a Girls with Guns show, first of all, with character designs from the Type Moon guy.
Okay.
So the characters are really attractive. The main character is Kanan and her rival, who is like sort of her sister. I don't remember her name. They're both like muscular badass chicks. So if you, like me, are really attracted to muscular badass chicks with guns, like just kind of, murdering their way through swaths of people John Wick style and having a good time about it, it's really enjoyable for the first like 6 or 7 episodes. Then it gets a little too like soap opera as it reaches conclusion. It is a Mari Okada original, so her screenplays tend to go a certain way, which is to say weird. And so it gets weird, and the animation doesn't quite hold up all the way through. But it was directed by the guy who directed Sword of the Stranger and Shirayuki Hime, generally a really good fight scene director. So the fights are incredible. I would say you could probably get away with just watching the Sakuga, and you'd be totally fine.
Okay. That seems a lot shorter and easier on the time.
Yeah, just watch like a Sakuga comp and decide if you think the girls are cute enough. It's very lesbian, so there's that. But that was my main interest, is girls with guns who like each other. I mean, this is exactly for me. That helps as well. I spent upwards of $300 on Kanan statues at the time, and people made fun of me for it because nobody particularly thought the show was good. But the heart wants what the heart wants, and the heart wanted some Kanan statues. God damn it! But that's all I have to say about Kanan. Robin, do you watch anime? Are you an anime fan?
I haven't watched anime in a while, but yeah, I was a big anime fan as like when I was younger.
Do you have something that holds up to you as like this is still important or good?
Well, I'm a JoJo head. All right.
Hell yeah! What's your favorite JoJo?
Probably. Well, Johnny's my favorite, but like he's not like good. He's bad.
Okay.
Well, he does try to like collect the corpse of Jesus Christ. So, I mean, I think you get marks down for that.
Sludge. That sounds deeply sludge. I'm down for
sludge.
It. By the way, so sludge is my new phrase to replace based, because based has too many alt-right connotations. So I'm introducing sludge because sludge goes deep and hard.
Wait,
like sludge metal.
Wait, how does based have alt-right connotations?
There's a lot of people who consider that to be like a dog whistle. The phrase based.
Really?
Yeah, because based and red pilled
I mean, I guess I did, but like I use that all the time.
I use it all. It's a great word, but I was like, I could do better. I could do a better version, and I like sludge. It's like, sludge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what I'm pushing.
Yeah, they started using it all the time. Like that's all they say is based on red pilled, which hilarious. Like taking the Matrix, the transist movie of all time, and making it an alt-right dog whistle.
They didn't know that yet. They didn't know how trans the movie was yet. I don't think
they weren't red pilled enough.
Both sisters were transitioned yet.
Based.
Okay, so it is specifically an anti-LGBT term, even at that. So all the more reason for me to try to replace it. But
I'm learning.
I mean, again, this isn't in all circles. I learned about the phrase "based" from Lil B, the based god. So yeah, no, I've heard what. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true.
I forgot you were being cut out. Looking into it, people have said that based is the opposite of debased, and you are debasing yourself by being LGBT. So to be the opposite of debasing is to be based. I've never heard this. I heard it from Lil B, the based god. Like that was the first time I ever heard the phrase. Was everybody kept talking about Lil B, And I was like, what is based? And it just meant like being awesome, essentially. And so
that's where I heard it as well.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is like a cultural rewrite thing where people are, trying to steal another black musician's work and call it something else for white supremacy, but that's just what it looks like to me. But I got to do what the culture does and swerve and come up with another term. And sludge is my pitch. So
sludge.
I like
see.
That. We'll see
sounds
how far
like a
it makes
Pokemon.
It sounds like a disgusting vagina state.
Sludge.
Yeah, you don't want to have sludge in your pussy.
Oh,
that's pretty sludge.
Yeah, it's gross. But it's also slimy. But you know what else is very slimy?
What? What else is very slimy, man?
All of the water. All of it. In Parasite.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All of the water.
There's that one shot where she's sitting, I think you already mentioned this, where she's on the toilet with the cigarette with the water filling up. Yeah, that's the best shot. That's the best shot in any movie, possibly, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's also, like... It mostly takes place during... partially during the day, partially during the night. But mostly during the day, which I found to be a good decision.
I want to talk about... I don't think this is a spoiler, but there's just one moment where a storm is causing lots of damage for poor people, and meanwhile the rich people's kid is literally like sleeping out in the yard in a teepee that looks like something you could buy at Target for $25, but it somehow just like is perfectly fine through a whole hurricane. And that was the funniest fucking thing in the whole movie to me. That was the biggest like fuck you.
Shit's just pouring down,
Yeah,
and it's taking it.
And it's
totally got that the waterproof tent on the top with the ventilation. I bet that it's very stuffy in there, but that kid's protected from the water, so that's good.
See, in America, when we get hurricanes, we just shoot in the opposite direction and stop it.
shoot enough bullets at it that it changes the trajectory. That's a strat.
Yeah, there were people doing that, and the government was like, "Please do not shoot in the opposite direction of a hurricane. You're gonna hurt someone."
What the fuck?
What is that supposed to do?
Well, the force of the bullet will turn the hurricane and stop it.
You see, Mint. There's this movie called Superman 2. I think it's Superman 2, where he flies around the Earth so fast that it spins the Earth backwards and it goes back. He goes back in time.
Yeah.
What?
So these people were thinking, like, the speed of the bullet will, counteract the trajectory. Oh, it's only a 90-mile-an-hour wind. Well, if I fire my bullet, that goes at 3,000 miles per hour. It's going to counteract that force, and that's just basic physics. You know what I'm saying?
And it's going to go back in time, and I'll be able to eat my ice cream again. I don't... What?
Bullets are faster than wind, so it'll stop the wind.
Holy fucking shit! I remember when a couple years ago, like hurricane season started up. It's hurricane season, and the political board on 4chan was paranoid that China had created a hurricane gun. That they had stationed on a boat off the shore of Cuba and were firing hurricanes up the East Coast. And I was like, why? There's been hurricanes every year for fucking ever. There's always hurricanes. What are you talking about?
The hurricanes, every hurricane ever on planet Earth, including the ones before human time, were made by this hurricane gun. That's what that means.
If I had a hurricane gun, I don't think I would shoot them at like a normal interval of hurricanes. Like, wouldn't you just shoot like 5?
5?
Yeah, why wouldn't you why would you do like one hurricane at a time?
Right.
Every few months or whatever, or like every few weeks.
Yeah.
Which hurricane do you choose? Do you choose the bigger ones, or do you choose just the little baby tropical storms and leave the big boys for the U.S. government to handle?
The U.S. government? Nobody handles hurricanes. They just happen.
Well, if you shoot at them, they stop.
I'm just the funniest thing about the thought of quote unquote shooting at a hurricane is like a hurricane is as large as like 4 states. Like a hurricane is larger than like Europe. Like hurricanes are fucking huge.
We have a lot of bullets.
What are they shooting at? Like they walk outside and just start shooting into the air whichever way the wind's not blowing. Like I can honestly imagine shooting at a tornado. And I can imagine like dumb people thinking that would work. Shooting at a hurricane? What are you talking about?
The hurricane's just madness. Like one like massive cloud that's in a circle. At what point is there going to be a reflection surface for the bullet to reflect?
No, it's the wind. The wind from the bullet that you create from the bullet counteracts the wind of the hurricane and stops it.
Oh, it's like dumber.
It's like when the Beyblades spin in opposite directions, and so they power each other up and like keep going.
Like, well, okay, if we're using Beyblade analogy here, then you're talking about spin stealing, and actually the spin stealer guy would go faster. So if that's the case with the bullet in the hurricane, if you're shooting the bullet in the opposite direction, then the hurricane's just going faster.
But it'll go faster and bounce, like it'll ricochet itself off the coast, maybe. You know,
off the coast. It's in the sky. It's in the sky.
We're trying to justify someone shooting a cloud. I highly recommend everybody Google the phrase "Bill the Ass Kicker," and you'll get a blog called "I Said So," where this guy was obsessed with this picture of this dude who's got a shirt that says, like obviously handwritten on his shirt, "Angry at the weather, I kicked a cloud's ass." And that guy is Bill the Ass Kicker.
More like the cloud kicker. Got him.
All right, I think we've finished talking about Parasite, right?
Yeah,
and,
I feel like
we're talking about
like we've addressed everything.
Mint, I hear that you are like into more than just men, and I want to know, what is your sexuality? What are your pronouns? Give me your sexual profile, if you will.
All right. So I am bisexual. My pronouns are she/her. And I like them big old titties. And cannot lie. They just massive titties. But also, I learned that I liked the massive titties because I remember going on. Y'all remember iFunny?
For sure.
Yeah.
There's like iFunny, like women who just like post their titties, but like it was non-nude. So it's like I remember seeing this one specific photo of a woman. She's like laying on her back, and she had massive titties, and so I could see the titties kind of like on her chest. And that was like the first photo. I was like, oh, this is hot. This is a woman? ? Am I a lesbian? And pretty much throughout high school, I mean, I knew I was like into guys, whatever, but like at the same time, I was like, okay, well, I also like women too. It was kind of like that. I never like struggled.
Did you think that you were more likely to be like were you thinking, okay, like I look at mostly girls in porn, but I'm also attracted to guys, so I must be bisexual? Because that's what it sounded like you were kind of suggesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's mostly I'm attracted to guys. I like women in porn. I've hooked up with a couple of women, and I like that. So, you know, it was a nice, fun experience. I've had a lot of sex with specifically with Riley and other women. So that's I like both. I like a little bit of both. I've never been very discriminatory against just gender. Whenever I am attracted to someone, it could be of either or female or male
or other, even, right? What about non-binaries?
I never considered that. I mean, there are some like There are some like non-binary actors that are like attractive, I could say.
Are you thinking of like Ezra Miller or something? Like who is coming to mind?
Careful.
I can't think of a non-binary actor.
I guess it's like anyone who's like more androgynous more than like non-binary,
Okay.
I guess. But like yeah, more just like bisexual.
No, yeah, it's fair to compare the two. You know, non-binary is a sexual or rather a gender identity, whereas androgynous, you know, could like you could be an androgynous man, just meaning like you identify as a man but you look like you could be a woman. Whereas to say that you're non-binary means like I don't identify as a man or a woman. It doesn't really matter how you look. So, you know, there's people who might, you know, present one gender or another, you know, in terms of social expectation, I guess, but they're not like thinking of themselves that way necessarily. So, you know, there's not necessarily a causation between androgyny and non-binariness. So yeah, that's the only reason to make sure that's distinct.
Yeah, I would have sex with some non-binary people. I mean, I don't know any personally, so I like having sex with Riley and women.
All right, well, that's a fantastic story of becoming bisexual because you saw big titties. Asher, I want to know how you identify sexuality, gender, and how you came to these
I
conclusions.
guess as far as sexuality, for a long time I said I was pansexual, which essentially means that I don't really care what gender someone is. Eventually I kept trying. I grew up in a high school where no one knew what that meant, though, so every time I tried to explain it, I was like, I like men and women and everything in between. And the immediate response I always got was, wait, so like children? And I was like, no, that's not what I mean.
Boy.
I'm not a girl, not yet a woman.
So like I just had to be like, okay, fine, I'm bisexual. We'll just deal with that. We'll go with that. And since then I've stuck with it.
Okay.
So that's the sexuality part. Gender wise, I am your regular old trans woman. I came to the way I came to the bisexual realization is I watched much like Mint. I watched gay porn and was like, I like this, and that was what I knew. That like it's a very it was not a very interesting story to figure out that I liked guys and women. But with the gender thing, that's a longer story because for a long time I didn't really know it. I didn't know I was trans, or at least I didn't label myself that way until I was 17. And I guess it was like a long time coming of that kind of conclusion. I grew up, you know, I grew up,
You grew up listening to Trixie the Golden Witch and stuff like that.
Okay,
definitely. It's just like listening to you talk about this gives me a little bit of nostalgia because I've known you since you were like actually, like, I don't know, how old were you when you started following my content?
Well, I was 14 when I started, 13, 14.
I know somebody's gonna have to say, yeah. I feel like a groomer because you were also listening to the Pub Crawl, which was like an 18+ show that we told people not to listen to if they were under 18, and you were of course listening to it anyways. But that's why I try. This is exactly why I try to be responsible with everything I say on the internet now, because I know that you can't stop 14-year-olds from taking influence from you.
Yeah, are you 18?
But,
click this box if you are 18.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, seriously, this podcast goes into some serious like, you know, if you're under 18 and you're listening to this, just fucking don't tell us that. We don't want to know. Fucking
it's a little bit too late. Yeah. It's just like,
yeah. Asher, you're an adult now. Tell me about
I'm 23, yes.
Tell me about the evolution here. God, has it really been 9 years? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Damn, same.
Yeah, it's it's been a while. So to be fair, I came to realize I was trans before Trixie did, though. Uh, though she did have a large part in it, though. So I started watching My Little Pony around when I was like 12. Um, and as the meme goes, there are two paths for people like me. Is you either realize you're trans or you're a Nazi, and I'm not a Nazi, so it was an easy path to choose. It I didn't really recognize it as a necessarily trans thing at first. It was just a thing that I watched, and I realized that not a whole lot of people understood why. So I would try to explain it a lot, especially in school, which kind of made me an outcast, but not to the extent that anyone wanted to completely disassociate. It was more just like I was a, people were curious about me, so they asked questions. No one was really like interested in, you know, trying to become friends. It was just this kid's interesting. Let's ask them a bunch of questions about this interesting thing they like, I guess. Um, and then when I kept watching My Little Pony, I got into the community aspect a little bit.
Oh, God.
And through that, worst decision I ever made. Yeah. You want to talk about like trauma?
A wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Being in that community as a child was one of the worst decisions I could have made, and I didn't know I was doing it at the time. It was a lot of like reading some fan fiction willingly, and then just traumatizing myself because I just didn't listen to the descriptions. I remember there was this one called what's it called? Twilight's Inferno, which riffs on Dante's Inferno. And there in the description of that story, it was like there's a chapter in here that a lot of people were upset about. Read at your own risk. And I was like a kid, and I was like, I'm gonna read it because I don't care. And then like I just traumatized myself at this young age because I just didn't listen to these warnings that were put out there. And I decided to get into the I was getting into the community, and I don't remember specifically how I found the analysis community, but when you looked up My Little Pony on YouTube, you eventually found something like that. And I found Persian Poetess. I don't know if you remember her, Trixie.
Oh, that sounds familiar, but I don't.
Okay. She doesn't, I don't think she does a whole lot of videos anymore. But she did way back when. And she had vaguely mentioned you on her Tumblr. Also a thing I was on as a child. And that's how I discovered you. And so it was a combination of Tumblr and being a fan of yours that I became aware of a lot of anime that covered LGBT sort of issues. Around like I'd say 15 or 16, I watched Horu Musko, or Wandering Sun.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said this in a previous video, but like a lot of your viewers watched that and realized they were trans.
Yeah.
Before you did, and
Mm-hmm.
I was also one of those. I was one of the people who watched that, and I identified so closely with it, and by that time I had a few trans friends,
Mm-hmm.
and it helped to be surrounded by
yeah, that's the biggest thing I was missing, that that I'm glad that like existed by the time you were a teenager, that you could even know other trans people.
Not IRL. I'll say that. Like,
oh well, fair enough.
I didn't have fucking Eddie friends in high school. High school was I didn't know what the hell I was doing in high school, so I ended up just like being that weird loner kid. And by the time I started growing facial hair was also about the time I started watching Hover Musco. And both those things happening at once really kind of put into perspective how much I disliked everything that was coming along with being a guy.
Yeah.
And the expectations that kind of came with that I was just not comfortable with. I think a big event that happened in my life was I was working at Giant Food Stores, which is like our supermarket in Central PA, and there was this one guy who was coming in as this other woman was leaving, and he made a big show of looking at this woman's ass as she was leaving, and then he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, she was a great ass, doesn't she?" And like I felt it felt disgusting that he would assume I wanted to be included in that, you know.
Yeah, he's just made you complicit. He's brought you in and made you a hostage.
Cause like I'm not fucking interested. I wasn't looking, and I don't know. Like I think he's a creep for looking, but it felt so alien to what I would have done, and I wanted to say something and I just couldn't. And that was like a big moment for me where I'm like, is this what I'm expected to participate in? Like, is this the sort of conversation that I should just expect and encourage out of other guy friends I have?
Just to be clear, the answer to that question is no, regardless of whether you're trans or not.
Obviously. But like it just it wasn't the first time something like that happened, but it was the one time that it did happen where I was like, oh, I really hate this. Because the guy did it with such a shit-faced grin that I wanted to, you know, I wanted to say something and I just couldn't. And since then I realized, okay, well, I'm not part of that, and I'm not part of. When I grew facial hair out, I hated the way I looked because not because I was particularly had anything against facial hair. It's just like it's
not for you.
I could only grow mutton chops. Like that was essentially the only thing I could do, and even the little like peach fuzz I could have on every other part of my face. I just there was something about it that felt unnatural. I didn't like.
I feel you, because my facial hair was so jank ass that when I was at the inner city school, all the kids called me Joe Dirt because I looked like Joe Dirt from Joe Dirt. And I was just afraid to shave. Like to me, shaving was like a masculine activity that I was afraid of. Like, oh, that makes you like, that's like a thing men do, and you're like writing on your face with a razor blade. Like it was so scary to me that it took like 3 or 4 years before I finally like asked my dad to show me how to do it. And then once he did, I realized it was fucking the easiest thing in the world, and I worried over nothing, you know.
Yeah.
But
you can do it every morning, just kind of flick it around in the shower, you know.
Yeah, it helps that I don't have a sensitive skin or anything, so my shaving is like, because my brother has to like fucking use the aftershave and everything, be all careful, use like special blades and shit, and I can just whatever, whip. I hate having to do it all the fucking time because I have the darkest facial hair in the world, and it's like, you know, 5 o'clock shadow right after I shaved. But you know, I've been going to laser away, so it'll eventually be gone.
I wish I could afford that.
My dad got it for me for a birthday gift, and I can't thank him enough. It is very expensive though. It's like $2,000, and it takes 10 months of appointments, and it hurts like fuck. It is extremely painful.
Yeah.
It's a short-lived pain, but it is just like, it feels like you're just getting like basically punctured over and over again with a laser. But it's been a little bit effective so far. You have to literally do all 10 rounds before, like it's just sporadic, you know, like what falls out. So it's just like lessening facial hair each time. So it's still a lot of fucking shaving, and obviously I have to shave everything else on top of that. Nightmare. I'm not gonna keep going on about shaving. Asher, continue your story.
But yeah, it was about I remember it was more than 5 years ago that I realized I was trans because in high school we had a teacher in speech class who made us write letters to ourselves 5 years in the future. And right before I
Mm.
moved out, I had actually gotten that letter back.
Oh,
Uh,
that's wild.
and in that, I mentioned I was like, I think I might be trans. Um, and when I look back at that now, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This wasn't just a thing that came out of nowhere. Because I feel like every trans person feels like there's something they're doing that is illegitimate to what should be expected of trans people, or
Yeah,
you know
imposter syndrome. It
exactly.
runs very, very heavy through the trans experience for obvious reasons.
And so for a long time, I was just kind of scared because when I was 17 and realized I was trans and came out to my mother, which was that was an interesting conversation by itself, and there was conflict surrounding that issue for about like 2 or 3 months, but it wore off pretty quickly. Um, but at least at the time, my mother wanted me to wait till I was 18 until I started transitioning. Um, and at the time, I could tell it was she was very serious about it, and I didn't feel like I didn't feel like making a conflict of it because I was still under her
Hmm.
roof. Her insurance probably wouldn't have covered it, and I was working at Giant, so I couldn't pay for it. So I kind of just put up with it. And by the time I could reasonably get HRT done, I was working at UPS. About 9 months after I started, the health insurance kicked in, and I just didn't do anything. I waited another year before I started making efforts, because at least at the time when I could start, when I got my health insurance, right around then was like the Democratic primary, and I got really big into that, really hopeful about Bernie, and I was like, oh well, he can just give free healthcare to everyone. That's exactly what's going to happen, and I
Poor
have
soul.
I have nothing to fear. And then we all know how that turned out, and so I for when the election was happening for about 3 months during that period, I felt like shit because everyone was saying, "Oh, you got to vote, you got to vote, you got to vote," and um, I I knew I was going to. I just didn't want to vote for Biden, even though everyone is because I during the it feels like during the primary everything that he's ever done in his 40-year career was brought up on Twitter, and everyone was lashing out at him, and rightfully so. The man is a monster.
Mm.
Um, but
Vito voted for
yeah, Vito voted for this. But like
it's just the context of Asher saying that exclamatory.
yeah. Um, but like it felt like everyone was against Biden in the primary, but the second it was clear that he was the candidate that the Democrats had to pick from, everyone was saying, "Oh, you have to vote for this guy or you're a Nazi," and that was like such a weird flip for me. And I didn't understand it because I didn't forget everything that was brought up during the primary. He's still the same guy. So, like that whole period, I felt like shit because I was being told a bunch of conflicting things from different people. A lot of my followers were like, "Oh yeah, you got to vote for Biden or you're a Nazi." Some of my followers were like, "If you vote, you're a fucking chump." And some
Yeah,
of
I
my
might have been one of those followers.
well, you know what? I largely agree with that now though, because when I did vote, finally, I I make the joke, but it's kind of not a joke about how when I filled in the ballot for Biden, I could kind of hear the screams of foreign children overseas. because it's like he hasn't changed much as far as policy is gone, and he's just
I can
my
hear the
God.
screams of little American girls getting their fucking hair played with.
Okay,
and I
yes,
didn't even vote.
He is also very touchy, but like I'm pretty sure that he hasn't done anything untoward. Hopefully,
Just
but
a lot of smelling and weird touching.
yeah, weird touching, and like there is at least one allegation against him that I like again was brought up during the primary and then we were just supposed to ignore once election time came around. But so around that period I just got drunk every day. I kind of was like
lunch.
I'm I was kind of like there's no point. I don't have anything to hope for. I just have the only thing that everyone is telling me to hope for is this election, and if Biden wins, at least it won't be Trump. Even though, like, I haven't really noticed much of a difference as far as my day to day has gone. But anyway, so once the election results were clear and Biden was sworn in, that was the point where I'm like, okay, well, I need to work on myself because the world is gonna break around me and I'm not going to have any control over it, so I can take initiative and try and make improvements, like getting on hormones, getting back into therapy, starting to use my insurance to buy just like necessities. I got new pairs of glasses, and I reached out to Riley and then eventually you, Trixie, and made the effort to start meeting up with, people who I knew online more, and that has helped a lot. And since then, I've been on hormones for a little bit more than a year.
Nice.
Yeah, like a year and 4 months. And to bring it back to the imposter syndrome, it does feel like if I miss hormones even a day, I feel like I've failed myself somehow, even though obviously that's ridiculous. And I will say I just want to point out that like I can afford hormones because of my insurance at UPS. I understand that's like a privileged position to have. Not everyone can afford hormones. They're expensive. The blood work will drain your fucking bank account quicker than anything. I wouldn't be able to do hormones without my job and without the health insurance I have. So I understand that like even being able to undergo that process is a privilege and to an extent, but it's something that I realized was necessary for me, and I had the ability to kind of make those efforts at little cost to me, so I made that effort, and that's essentially my trans story.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you made all those discoveries in the last couple of years, and again, as somebody who has literally known you for a really long time, I do think you've grown like immensely in the last couple of years. Like, and you seem way less angry. Like you used to come off as kind of an angry kid.
I was an angry kid. I was a very angry kid, and that's like it through like kind of age has calmed me down a lot. The estrogen has calmed me down a lot. That's another thing that I feel like going through puberty in my as a guy, essentially, it felt like there was a lot of like anger I didn't know what to do with. It was a lot of pent up rage, and you're not supposed to express that. And it sucked, and it came out a lot in like online interactions because it didn't feel as real as like real life. I would never come off that way if I was just talking to somebody, but online. Right. Doing that online.
No, when I met you, like you were so much nicer than I like would have imagined. Like just and I'd talk to you, but like a lot of because you'd been on the pub crawl where you were usually just kind of listening. So like we hadn't had a lot of like actual conversations. And then like I think it was early last year, like last January, I think you came to visit us for the first time, and I was just like, wow, you are like way more like talkative and like open and everything than I had expected, and I was like, wow, Asher's actually really nice.
That was learned. That was learned. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you right now that I had to work to that. I didn't have friends in high school. It was after high school, after I turned 18, I could start doing like dating apps. I could start driving. I was able to meet Don Jolly just on a whim. Like there was a bunch of stuff that I was able to do, and through that I was able to become much more social, much more open, really kind of bloom in a way that I was not able to do in high school at all.
Welcome. This is your first appearance on this podcast, and we're about to have you really give us as much of your life story as you want to, as you feel like you are willing to give, so that we all know more about you.
I'm excited to tell you my whole life.
Yes, well, I'm particularly focused on the LGBT aspect, but if it's anything like me and what we got out of Asher, that will basically be half your life story.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, let us know how it all started.
So, I guess very similar to Asher. When I was like, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, I think I might have gotten into anime before MLP. But yeah, I ended up just being kind of like, oh, hello? Oh, God. Discord.
Yep, we still hear you.
I don't know, my Discord's spazzed out. All right. Yeah, I think I got into anime before I got into MLP. But I was kind of the kid at school who like dressed like a gremlin, watched anime, and then eventually like watched MLP. So obviously very popular, right?
When you say dress like a gremlin, I want more specifics, because like I'm thinking when I'm 11 or 12, I'm wearing mostly like long sleeve Pokemon shirts that have like text all the way down the sleeves, and like probably just like baggy blue shorts or something, and nothing matches. Nothing I wear matches.
Nothing I wore matched. It was usually like a graphic tee and then like sweatpants.
That sounds.
I was
right.
the sweatpants kid.
That's how did you wear shirts that were like too big for you or anything like that?
No, well I'm bigger, so
okay.
My shirts kind of have to fit properly.
I was a shrimpy kid, but I would wear like double XL shirts that I just like swam in.
I probably, if I were skinnier, I would have probably been that kid.
That makes sense.
But no, I was a larger kid, the sweatpants kid, watched anime, watched My Little Pony. And so there was definitely like a lot of bullying. There were a lot of people that were interested in like what's going on. Like who is this kid? How did this happen? But there was a lot of like, F slurs and like, trying to like pick fights, shit like that.
Yeah.
This would have been, I don't know, maybe like late elementary school, early middle school shit,
I'm curious, at this point, were you like what's wrong with me and blaming yourself, or like what's wrong with them, like why is everybody like this? Like which one was more your mentality?
But more what's wrong with me? Like why am I like this? Yeah. But I mean, I had enough friends, like there were people that were like, I had a circle, and I also had like a friend from each kind of clique, I guess.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That was me in high school.
Yeah, that was me in high school too, but better. It was a lot worse in elementary school, middle school, but it was really bad in because I was a gifted student as well. The meme.
Did they like
curse?
Did they take you to the weird like room in the school with like the windowless room? Do you know about this thing? If I had to clarify, so when I was in the second grade, I was put into the gifted program, as they called it, where they would like take certain students from a bunch of classes and take us to like this weird windowless room in the middle of the school and have like 2.5 hours of like very specified, style of learning that I did enjoy, but it ended up being that they sent me to a different school for the next grade, like a gifted school.
Yes.
I went there for a year and a half, and that was a wash. But that gifted program with the windowless room is apparently a thing that was like just like happening all over America in the 90s, and everybody who like remembers it has the very vaguest memories of like they describe it like they're talking about a some kind of weird men who stare at goats experiment or something, but it did kind of feel that
I
way.
didn't have a windowless room, but I did have like it was always like weird special treatment from like teachers and like principal, and this is in elementary school, and like I would get sent to like I did like a math competition, which was at like I had to go to like a hotel. This was like not even school hours. I had to go to like a hotel, like however many towns away to like compete in some like math competition because like I guess I'm like the only one who was able to do math competently in school. Like I was that kid. I was the kid that actually enjoyed math.
Do you still enjoy math?
Yeah, I don't like the later math stuff, like fuck trig, shit like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up getting fourth. It's not a math camp. It was a math competition. I ended up getting shipped off to like some scholastic, like cool school, like very educational. Wow, you're gonna go places. That was like the worst year of school I ever had. It was in 5th grade. My teacher had it out for me because these scholastic schools, the whole thing with them is, we've been in this class, we've had the same like classmates since like kindergarten or some shit. So it's like, cool, let's implant this person in the last year of elementary school into your class.
Yeah, that sucks.
Where like I pretty much just had to go there and pretend I liked everything they liked because they were already like a cohesive unit. So I had to just like
at least
blend in like a chameleon.
At least you had the sense to even do that. That's my big mistake all growing up was I never like that's what posers do. So I just never thought to like I guess I just didn't realize that it was something people were doing on purpose. Like I didn't know people were like deliberately liking things other people liked on purpose. I just thought everybody liked everything different from me and I didn't know why. Like
it was like that for the good first half of it, and then
yeah.
I just realized like just work it out, middle school is coming. I ended up doing a program in elementary school, which was every like week I would get like driven to like this special middle school, which was like you had to take a test to get into it. But I would go there, I would like sit with this homeroom teacher who ended up being my homeroom teacher in middle school, and like do middle school stuff for like 1 day a week every week. I ended up taking a test. I got into the school. I ended up going to the school. And this is like peak like anime stuff now, right? Like middle school is like cool, anime, awesome. Like we're a cool, quirky kid.
Yeah.
I had some friends in middle school, but that was where the bullying was like kind of the worst. And it doesn't help that like you can hear my voice. I have
when you say bullying, like what did that entail usually?
A lot of like homophobic slurs, a lot of like it was a lot of like verbal bullying. There was some physical bullying, which we're gonna get to at the end of the story, but
so out of curiosity, like was this just out of like were they bullying you for just the way you looked or acted, or like did people like were you outwardly gay, or people just thought you were, or like what was
people thought I was. I always had long hair.
Yeah, okay. So same reason as me.
Yeah.
Listening to you tell this is surreal for me because it's like a lot of like the same beats in the same places. But yeah, middle school wasn't fun to have long hair through.
Yeah, I never cut my hair pretty much like when I was younger anyway. Every once in a while, like my dad would make me shave it all or something, or like not make me, but like highly pressure me into it, and then I would do it, and then I would let it all grow out again. So yeah, I was just a long-haired kid. You could hear my voice. It's lispy. It sounds gay. It's a flamboyant voice. I'm cursed with a flamboyant voice.
Hey, Mint. I'm curious. Were you ever put in any like weird school programs like this? Any like advanced fast track type stuff?
Advanced fast track.
Like, did they ever put you in a special gifted program or anything like that?
No, but they should have.
Because you're so fucking intelligent.
I was going very fast. I was making like Sonic through the curriculum.
I guess I should ask, how did you do in school? Like, were you a good student or?
I was generally a good student up until sophomore year when I stopped caring about school, and
that's pretty far in.
I just kind of started using answers off of Slater.com for math books and various other textbooks, and I used all my other free time to draw.
Yep.
So yeah, so that was a fun experience. Also, kind of, it was whatever, I guess.
It was whatever, I guess.
Like college was whatever, I guess. Like it was
so
okay.
You're saying you gave up in sophomore year of college, not in high school.
No, I gave up high school.
Okay.
I gotta mention though that my sophomore year was the year before I started college. College had the high school had a program where you can do college and high school at the same time. You can just use college for high school and college credits. So I did that. Yeah, so I did that. That's why I have an associate's degree. Because of that. But yeah, towards the end, it was like, I'm just done. I just want this degree. And then I'm good. Pretty much.
Well, sick. Sorry for interrupting your story, Robin. I just wanted to inject a little levity because things were getting sad. But you can go and continue.
How old? What's first year of middle school age?
11, 12.
Riley would be in the story by this point, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a few friends. Yeah, there was a lot of verbal bullying, and I was not like popular, but like I had a good amount of friends in middle school. But there were just a lot of like dickheads that like, homophobic. I mean, they're middle schoolers. They're like the most ugly people on earth, right? Middle schoolers are the meanest, most evil creatures that exist on this planet.
Yeah.
Teenagers scare the living shit out of me.
That's all I'm doing. No more than that.
Copyright striked. I was enjoying the school, kind of. Like, again, it's a gifted school. It sucks, I guess. You get so much expectations put on you when you're like given this like gifted, you're gifted, you're super smart, like you're going places, like you got to think about college. And I was always like, well, what if I don't want to do college? And it's like, well, you have to do college. Why? What if I don't want to do college? So at this point, it was clear that like something was different. Not necessarily like I didn't really know what was going on. I don't think I knew what was going on until like pretty much before I came out, which would have been like 16. So like, high school. But yeah, the bullying escalated to a point where, and this is first year middle school still. Some kid like domed me with a basketball.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I like fought him back, and I like just socked him right in the face. I ended up getting in trouble. This was end of the year. So instead of expelling me, they were like, just don't come back next year. They gave me the don't come back treatment.
Wow.
Yeah. They were like, you can
Wow.
come to graduation, like you've passed a year, but don't come back. And so I went the homeschooled route. So I was homeschooled for the next 2 years of middle school.
How did that go?
Awesome.
So
Well, we don't know. I don't know if it was awesome. Let's find out.
I mean, it was pretty awesome. I mean, I got to
Okay.
just play video games and watch anime.
Yeah, it's homeschool is cool when you're intelligent. I have to imagine. Like, my best friend when I was in high school was a NEET because he had a condition where like he would get fucking headaches, cluster headaches every day. And it was like prohibitive to do anything, but they would just like send him all the schoolwork and he would do like a whole curriculum's work in like a weekend and then just, watch 2,000 anime for the rest of the year.
I also had the headache curse. I had a lot of truancy problems because I missed a lot of school because I couldn't go.
That sucks. You had like cluster headaches?
They never like diagnosed me with anything concrete. Like I saw neurologists, I got a bunch of brain scans, and they were like, we don't know what's wrong.
Damn.
They were like, take a leave.
What cured it for him? They put him in like an experimental program, and literally psilocybin mushrooms cured his cluster headaches. One shroom trip, never had another one. So
yeah, they've lightened up over the years. It might have just been the stress of being a kid.
Yeah, honestly, it probably was.
Yeah, they were like light sensitive, horrible headache. Like there were times where like the school wouldn't do anything about it. They like wouldn't send me home, and like I can't open my eyes up because the school lights are fucking blinding. So I'm sitting in class with my eyes just like pinched closed, and I can't do anything.
Damn.
Yeah, I had big truancy problems, but it was fine. I was homeschooled at that point, so I would just I'd play games, pretty much all the time.
What did you learn from these video games?
I mean, it was League of Legends, so I learned to hate myself.
You learned to be a terrible person and
yeah, say slurs and hate myself. No, I don't know.
Sounds about right.
It was fun. I knew Riley by this point because I had met someone on Xbox who was friends with him. That's how I met Riley. I met some kid who was like a childhood friend of Riley's, and Riley ended up adding me on Facebook because that was the thing. Like, hey, you're friends with my friend. We're added now. We're friends.
Yeah, all the cool kids had Facebook.
Yeah, when it was a cool, hip new social media. Wasn't cool or new at the time, but.
Wait, what year did each of you create a Facebook? I want to know.
2009? I was 10.
Yeah, I think it was like 2011 or something, and then I never used it again like a year later, so.
I believe mine was 2000. It was either 2006 or 7, but probably 7. I think it was like early 2007. Which is only a year before I made my Twitter. Which is only a year before I made my Tumblr. I have been on the internet for too long.
Yeah, I think I made my Facebook in 2009. I think I met Riley in like 2010 or something like that.
We've all been on the internet for a really long time, actually. Like,
yeah.
Too long.
Too long.
Robin, so at this point in your story, we've made it through middle school, right? And you said you came out when you were 16, so that would be mid-high school, right?
Yeah.
So what led to you?
Something like that.
Coming out.
Yeah, we had a little internet friend group. I guess it didn't really kick off. Like we had like I don't know, like 4 friends or something like that at this point. So Riley and I, our like bonding when we were younger was we would run Facebook pages.
Okay.
And like moderate them because they could get pretty large.
So what was the biggest Facebook page you remember being a part of?
I think it was like around 20,000 likes.
Damn.
So, I mean, not like large today, but at the time, like kind of large for Facebook standards.
Yeah, and for like kids fucking around just doing it for the hell of it.
Yeah, like it was just like memes. Like, it wasn't anything serious, or like there was nothing to sell.
Right.
You know,
You're just trying to see how big of a meme page you could get away with, basically.
popularity contest, I guess. I don't know. It was like getting attention anonymously.
So, okay. So, well, obviously we all love getting attention anonymously since we all do a podcast. And Robin, I don't even think we've
And we're
mentioned
trans.
Thanks for that. I don't even think you've mentioned the name of the show that I've been on that you do or have done. I don't know if is it still going?
The MoCast.
The MoCast is. Are you still on the MoCast?
I am still on the MoCast. I recorded one earlier tonight.
Awesome.
Actually.
Tell us where to find the MoCast.
It is anchor.fm/the-mo-cast.
Amazing. I've been on there.
Amazing.
I had a great time. You and Mo are both lovely people, so I endorse it.
And Riley, the other Riley.
Oh yeah, and Rieli is also on there. I love that kid. But anyway, so you were making Facebook pages, getting attention on the internet. Did you do any like podcast or live streaming type stuff back then, or trying to find a non-awkward way to ask, but a lot of people I know who were big into the internet in their teens were cam whoring. So, did anybody have any experience with cam whoring in this group?
No,
not me either.
No
but
idea
I've had
what
like
you're talking about.
Ash.
Not me either. Yep.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe nobody wants to admit to having distributed child pornography of themselves, but I've known a lot of people who cam whored through their teens.
Through their teens?
Yes, through their teens.
Oh my god.
The internet is a scary place.
Mint, do you have any experience with cam whoring online?
Good question, Asher.
Cam, like, streaming, like,
yeah.
Whenever you say cam whoring, I imagine, like, myself in front of like, just myself.
A live streaming, like,
live
webcam.
Streaming, yeah.
Yeah.
I am not live streaming, but I'm just taking a bunch of photos.
We're talking about present tense. We're talking about your Fansly, fansly.com/titsmintsalad.
Yeah, that has a bunch of photos.
Wait, have you never done anything like this before now?
Yes.
Okay. Mint.
Yeah.
When you were a teenager, did you ever do any, did you ever, talk to people online and, I don't know, show them your body, I guess, in exchange for money in particular?
Not for money.
Okay.
It was mostly just me being like, "Oh, I'm teenager. Please, I don't have anyone to talk to because everyone in my age group is busy. Everyone's busy and I'm not. I'm the one that's bored and I need some companionship / someone to talk to." So yeah, mostly it was just talking to people online.
Was that all your cam whoring experiences as a teen?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, yeah, I never done anything like this for money, except for recently, which is pretty cool.
You should have.
Yeah, Robin, we're still in your story. I want to know exactly what led to you coming out.
Yeah, so this would have been probably next year or like the year after. I ended up doing some like half-day high school program. That's where I met a lot of friends. And this was the point where like I finally started like meaningfully interacting with people outside of school. Or like the internet, like just people on like Skype, because that was before Discord. God help us. I guess I just started realizing like I don't even know what led to it. It was more of a thing of like not knowing that trans was like even a thing. Because like at the time, you got to remember like this wasn't a like widely talked about thing until like Caitlyn Jenner, right?
Right.
Like people didn't really talk about it, or if they did, it was always like, oh, they're the butt of the joke.
Right.
Like, oh, and she had a penis. Oh,
Yeah.
and like that's the sitcom moment.
Oh my God, she's got a mustache. I always think about from
her. That's a dude.
I remember in middle school, at like a bit. It was middle school or high school. There was this bit about like, oh, people would just keep showing you a picture of her back and saying, oh, smash or pass. And because a bunch of guys are horny in middle school and high school, a bunch of them would say, "Oh, I'd smash," and then the joke would be, "Ha ha!" But she was born. That's not natural.
And then it's ew. That's a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because something's wrong with liking trans people. I hadn't considered it as an option, and probably once I got to high school, it was when I started really like thinking about my gender identity more consciously, because obviously like things didn't line up. Like I said, I was kind of a Gremlin anime My Little Pony fan, and didn't really like like masculinity or like hyper masculine things. I wasn't like I don't know what this will say a lot about me, but like what are even like hyper masculine things, right? Like
Dragon Ball Z. That's the one that always comes to my mind.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I'm in middle school watching like really corny like like fucking shit like Clanad and all that shit.
fucking
Clanad is a woman's show.
Clanad. It is a woman's show.
It's a good show though. Just takes a while to
it
takes a while to get there. Like
Sure.
Yeah, it takes until after story, you mean?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Because I couldn't finish it the first time I tried. Because I found the comedy really obnoxious. But eventually,
Well, most anime's comedy is pretty obnoxious.
yeah. But eventually, it kind of won me over, and then after story's great. So.
But the point is, I was watching like slower, like
girly focus.
not hyper shonen anime,
Yeah.
Which is funny now that I'm a JoJo fan. Which, what's more masculine than that, right? That's when I started thinking about my gender identity. It was in high school, and I didn't really tell anyone because it was I had never met anyone who was trans.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of these things that was like, oh, like this has got to be like a rare thing.
Yeah.
Like, because I knew gay people. I've known gay people my whole life. Like my babysitter when I was a kid was gay. Well, he's gay. He's getting married now.
Nice.
Like I had always known gay people. My family had always done the like, oh, talking to me and my brother and saying like, yeah, eventually you'll grow up and you'll marry a nice woman, and then they'd look at me and go like, or a guy, shit like that, like calling me out.
Yeah.
Like they always knew there was something there. So when I finally ended up, I think I came out to some friends first because I didn't want to do the whole family thing. So I had started with some more like friends that I thought would be chill about it. Like people that I knew would not like freak out.
Yeah.
Like people that I know I wouldn't lose friendships with over,
Yeah.
And luckily for me, a lot of people were pretty cool with it. I only lost like, a couple of people.
Mm-hmm.
I started with like the friends that I thought would be the most chill, and then I ended up moving towards my family. I told my mom first, and my mom was like, "That's cool." Like my mom didn't like do a whole thing around it. She was like, "It's confusing." It's still fucking confusing to her. Let's be real. I don't know how you guys.
It's
How your
definitely
families are.
confusing for my dad.
One of the funniest stories that I have about the confusion surrounding my gender identity is my mother is very supportive now. She's about the best mother you could ask for, but there's still some slip ups which are funny. And she was buying me some bras in Walmart. Very sweet of her. She did not need to do that. But she's buying me these bras, and she hands me one, and she's like, "There you go, son." What could you?
My mom has my dead name tattooed on her. which is very funny.
No.
That's unfortunate.
My mother
Yeah.
hates tattoos, so I'm lucky on that front.
Yeah, she's got all her kids' names tattooed, so my dead name's on there, and she's gonna do that for her granddaughter too. And I'm like, maybe you should wait
Yeah.
just to be completely safe.
So my parents got our like Chinese zodiac symbols tattooed, or no, Mayan zodiac symbols tattooed on them. Just tell her to do something like that. Symbolic representation.
Well, she wants me to get it for her birthday. She wants
Oh,
me to pay for
boy.
this tattoo.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. And so now I'm stuck in a really tough spot where it's like, did I get my mother the birthday gift she wants, or you know?
Well, it'll be her thing to regret, I guess, if things go south. Or
It's not. She doesn't regret her tattoo. That's the thing. I'm the one that's
You're the
uncomfortable
one
with it.
regretting yeah. Is it like in a hyper visible place too, or?
No, it's like above her ankle.
Okay, so it's not always.
So like on the inside of the leg above the ankle.
Interesting.
Okay.
There's like a band around her ankle, and then above it, there's the three names of like me, my brother, and my sister.
Good idea. Other than the one thing that could go wrong with that situation.
The one specific thing that could go wrong. Well, I mean, it's not unreasonable that people change their names.
No, yeah, for sure. My mom changed her name from Alice to Allison. She tacked an N onto the end.
It's still spelled like Alice,
Yeah,
but with an N?
With an N on the end.
Why?
Because the way that... So when she was growing up, then Alice was a common name of various characters. Now, granted, she's a big fan of Alice in Wonderland, but not so much of the maid from the Brady Bunch. And the way that my grandma calls her name is like Alice, with a lot of emphasis on the A. So with Allison, it puts all the emphasis on the back end of the name, so you don't have that like harsh grating sound,
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom to this day still screws up the pronouns. Everyone's pretty good on the name at this point. I mean, everyone fucking should be. It's been 7 years.
That is a long time.
You know?
Yeah, I'm 2 years into my name, and my dad is struggling still. Like, I could tell that he just doesn't have enough conversations where he uses my name to be thinking about it. Like, he's still thinking my old name in his head, so
yeah,
I can see the look of like, ah, fuck, damn it, when he says it.
have you guys ever gotten the classic like, well, you're still my son, like?
I
thankfully haven't.
don't think I've gotten stuff like slant version. Not quite that extreme, but something like it.
Because like my sister's older than me, but like they're like, oh, the firstborn son,
Right.
Like,
Yeah, no, I'm in that. But I was also like, so in my case, I have 2 younger brothers who have grown up to be very close to my dad's conception of masculinity. So, it's taken a lot of the it's just taken it off of me. Like, he doesn't have to be worried that that he was like not capable of having sired a good man. You know what I mean? So there's two perfectly fine specimens there. But I don't think he's internalized the idea that he raised a daughter in any way, shape, or form. Whereas my mom has clearly internalized that and just gets it. Like, but she would have gotten it at any point. Like, she would have always been able to. And my dad would not have ever been able to, but he is accepting. So that's honestly more than enough for me. Okay, I won't say it's more than enough for me, but it's better than almost anybody else gets. So I'm willing to regard it as privilege, even in spite of maybe I want more, but yeah. Anyway, I feel like I'm interrupting.
Yeah, my dad was the last person I told.
That makes sense.
Like, I told some of my like more conservative friends before I even told my dad.
My parents found out I was coming out through Twitter, and they were not okay with them. My mom was not okay with that.
Yeah, that's gotta be rough as like
you got to tell your parents
like an online
Twitter.
personality.
You got to.
my parents live in California now, and did at the time. So I was like living, with my ex in a house in Virginia, and like I hadn't even spoken to my parents in like a while. So it was like a thing where I didn't know where to begin. I was like, I don't know how to start this conversation, and that's always been something I've struggled with my whole life. I don't know how to talk to my parents. Like, I don't know how to bring them into my life without making it like a big deal or something that's going to be like scary for them, I guess. So I just tend to not. I just tend to do shit by myself, which is a mistake. But I don't know. They still live across the country from me presently, so not a lot of interaction.
Yeah, I have a lot of interaction with my parents because I still live with them.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I take care of my dad, so
Yeah.
that's my job. Yeah, my dad I told last, and I remember the conversation we had because I think I caught him outside while he was like smoking a cigarette, and I just kind of like told him. I didn't like fluff it up or sugarcoat it or anything.
Right.
And he was just like, "Yeah, it's gonna be tough for you, but that's cool."
Right. That's a good
Which is like,
response.
I had worked up this whole thing in my head of like him, freaking out or something.
Sorry, Mint.
Yeah.
Have you ever like come out to anyone?
Not like officially, no. But it's not really hard to figure out, I guess.
Right. If you follow your stuff, you would probably peg you as bisexual.
Yeah, pretty much. I've never really felt the need to just like come out officially.
There's never been like somebody you had to tell or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, just cause like throughout like middle and high school is mostly I couldn't get one person to sleep with me, much less two, much less a woman.
Right.
So it was I had different priorities in mind than like telling my parents, "Oh, I'm bi,"
Yeah.
It was just like, "Oh, I'm just existing, and hopefully in the future I can hook up with some women," and that's what happened. So I call it a goal success, and there will be more goal successes.
Bless up.
Bless.
Robin, do you have more to your story still?
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about like sexuality as well.
Yes.
Because
Let's
like
go there.
that has been a huge fuck for my whole life. More than the gender shit.
Okay, interesting.
Because the gender shit's like, yeah, I mean like that's the more like that's the part you struggle with more.
Mm-hmm.
Like externally, I guess. But the internal struggle for me has been like all the sexuality shit. Because I've gone through about 1 billion labels.
Mm.
Like at first I thought I was just like a gay trans woman, right? Like I thought I just liked women. But at this point now, my only relationship and it was a pretty long-term relationship was with a trans man.
I feel that. I have had feelings for a trans guy. My God. I'm not gonna get into it, but like, I get it.
It's a weird fuck, right? And then because like I did that, and then like I thought maybe ace. Like right now I'm on like I just say demisexual everywhere. I don't fucking know. I don't know what. It's a fuck. It's a big brain fuck.
A big brain.
Just a lot of labels. So many labels.
Well, yeah, labels are fucking dumb. Why can't you just be a person?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Well, where I'm at is like when people feel the need to say they are straight or gay or whatever, it's like, well, you're not attracted to all women or all men. Like everyone's attracted to specific people. And so like when you label it like that, it's like you're just limiting your options basically. And also I don't know, like virtue signaling about how much you are not the other thing, So, and I really do think most people don't even think about their sexuality. Like they're not thinking, oh, I'm straight and I have to label myself straight. It's like mostly guys who are afraid of the fact that they are attracted to some men you know, who like need to really project how that's totally not the case at all, you know. I
wonder if there was no fear response like that, if more people would like
I would almost
be like,
certainly bet.
yeah, I'm straight, but if if there was a guy.
I just think that like romantic, I think that sexual attraction can spring out of lots of different scenarios, and it's not just about like, oh, I see you and I'm instantly want to have sex with you. Like a lot of people seem to think like attraction is just on that level of like, oh, I met eyes and I felt a tingle and therefore that's attraction. But it's like you can be attracted to somebody because of their personality or, you know, through getting to know them and everything. And I think there's probably plenty of people who have experienced attraction to someone of their own sex and, you know, just had to find some way to compartmentalize it that's not what was going on because it doesn't suit the identity they think they have, you know?
Well, yeah, because if you've just grown up as like straight cis, you don't like sit and think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I did a lot of homeschooled stuff. Like, what do you do besides think all day?
Yeah,
You're just kind of stuck with your thoughts, and like you're all in your head.
for sure.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have that many friends either.
Yeah. Story of my life, all in my head.
That's why I don't think I could do homeschooling. It'd be too much. It'd be too much isolation.
Yeah, I mean it was easy, which isn't like necessarily a good thing.
Well, shall I get into my story then?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, hell yes.
All right, I'm going to try to power through this as quickly as possible because I could go on forever, especially after listening to you all tell your stories because it's just like made my whole life flash before my eyes. But I'm going to start from early childhood because I've seen pictures of what I looked like when I was a little kid, the way that my mom dressed me, which is this sort of hipstery, beatnik kind of like cool, very agendered style of dress. And I was pretty. I was a pretty baby. So like for I'm a pretty baby. For like you know, the first few years, like I was very much like my parents were always talking about how fucking like they always praised my looks. So I thought of myself as like, okay, I'm an attractive person. Like I'm you know, I'm a cute kid who wears cool clothes. And I spent almost all my time with my mom because in the early days, my dad was in the Navy. He was, you know, always stationed out. And also when he was home, he would like play volleyball and do all kinds of other stuff. So like, I just don't really have a lot of memories of my dad really being around in my early childhood. And it's mostly me and my mom like watching sing-along tapes and, you know, playing the Sega Pico, a learning console not a lot of people know about from the early 90s. Watching Disney tapes and shit. And like we moved 7 times by the time I was 3. So I don't remember having any like friends or connections or anybody who I could recognize, just like a swirl of faces. At some point, my brother Victor was born when I was 1.5. And you know, we were just kind of always a unit. We were always around each other for like the whole time until we were adults. So I was used to the idea that I am a pretty little boy who has a little brother who's also a little boy. And, you know, we are my mom's precious boys. But my mom was always very insistent. Like, you can dress and look however you want, and it doesn't make you not a boy. Like, that was her way of thinking was, you know, like, oh, just because you dress this way, that doesn't make you... You know, it doesn't say anything about you, really. You can just be whatever you want, whatever you think you are. But because of the fact that...
Which is true.
It's true, yeah. And in my mind, it was like, well, okay, like, I am a boy, because that seems logical. But in the course of being myself and doing whatever I wanted, everyone else was confused by this. And like one of the earliest memories I have that I cite as like sort of the start of me realizing something was wrong is in kindergarten, because the girl who sat next to me saw that I had long hair and was like, she said something like, "You're a girl," and I was like, "No, I'm a boy," and she was like, "No, you can't be a boy. You have long hair." And I was like, "Well,
I got that a ton too.
And yeah, it's like it was so confusing. It's like, well, I don't know how to prove it to you. You know, like I can't pull out my dick right here, so what do I fucking, how can I possibly communicate to you that it was so frustrating. And I just sat there thinking about it like all day in class and not paying attention, and like, that was, I think, my first experience with dissociation probably. And like, just going down a mind tunnel and just being, like all in my feelings about something. And so from there, every time I interacted with girls around my age around then, like I didn't know what to say to people. I was not raised in an environment where there's like a specific way that you're supposed to talk to people. I have a memory of a girl on a playground once who, like, I thought we'd be friends, and then she said, "Are you Christian?" And I said no, and she like cried and ran away. So, I was like, I don't know how to communicate with all these like regular Christian white bread children. And all the interactions I had with girls had gone so, little girls are like really fucking like, they would cry. They'd literally cry and run away because you said something like that. And so I came to really despise girls. And so for a lot of my childhood, I just very performatively hated girls, hated everything girly. But everyone called me a girl all the time because I couldn't help but I was an extremely effeminate small kid with long hair and, and just feminine features. So like, I would have gotten literally mad at people for saying that I was a girl back then. But at the same time, I discovered sexuality when I was like 7 or 8 because
Oh, Jesus.
my older cousin and I found my dad's porn magazines, and he was like 13 at the time. So he's going through puberty. He's looking at this stuff to, see naked girls. And I was looking at it with him, and I didn't have like a sexual response so much as I was fascinated by the exaltation of the women. Like it was girls looking really happy, and my dad had like really hardcore magazines. So there's like I very distinctly remember the first time I saw 2 girls sharing a double-sided dildo and just looking so happy about it. And that image like really imprinted on me. So like, and the way I don't want to describe this because it's I don't want to get into any gross detail, but basically like I had a feminine way of entertaining myself to looking at these magazines. So like, and I didn't register any of that at the time. I didn't think of this as like saying anything about me, saying that I'm like bisexual or anything, that I'm like focused on it this way or straight or gay or anything like that. My takeaway was just like, this stuff makes me feel good. Looking at these girls that look like they're very happy makes me feel good. So I liked all these porn magazines, and I've looked at them a few times, but eventually, like, because of the fact that I was actually in spite of having gotten into these porn, I was a very sheltered child where like I didn't watch any violent movies. I hadn't seen any sexual content outside of this. But my parents, in spite of trying to shelter me, are just vulgar people. Like, my dad was in the Navy. He talks like a sailor. He, talked about hot girls all the time. He cracked jokes about, cracked gay jokes all the time. Like, my dad was definitely homophobic when I was a kid, and he overcame that, over the years. And he has traumatic reasons for why he felt that way that I understand. But, when I was growing up, my only understanding of being gay was that it was a bad thing you don't want to be. That it's an insult people call each other. That's it,
Yeah.
And so
My brother would use it all the time. I get that.
I would use it all the time.
Same. And I still would if I wasn't a public figure, probably. Like, it would just be something I didn't take that seriously,
I've started taking it back, ironically, like calling things gay.
Yeah. A lot of people do, and more power to it. The only reason I won't is that, again, I'm trying to be extra responsible about the way I talk on the internet. But when I was a kid, gay was just an insult. It was just a bad thing you don't want to be. Now, there was a period of 4 years when I was 6 to 10 where I lived in one house. It was like the most stable period of my life, even though I switched schools to the gifted school in the middle of this, and that was a nightmare. But like, the 2 best friends I had at the time, both are gay. I didn't know this. other kids always accused my best friend Tommy, who became a dancer, of being gay because he spent all his time watching Britney Spears music videos and learning the dances. But he would, he refused. He would say, no, I'm not gay. And so I was very defensive of the idea that he was not gay. And I think that eventually started pushing him away from me because he was like realizing he was gay. And I'm out here like, basically gay bashing in his defense, even though on the side of that, I'm like wishing upon a star that I could be turned into a girl so I could be his girlfriend. Because in my mind, well, that wouldn't be gay. But the weird part about that is I was so adamant that I'm not a girl, but it would be worth being a girl if I could be with this guy, So it was a really weird headspace to be in as a kid who was avoiding feminine content to this extent where like I would see shows with girl characters, immediately connect with it, and then like deliberately not watch anymore because I didn't want, I didn't want to be caught liking that stuff. And there was a time where my mom was like making fun of me watching Sailor Moon by saying like, oh, you're into, because she always would take it as, oh, you're into girls now. Like if she saw me watching girls, she'd be like, oh, so you're finally taking an interest in girls. And I distinctly remember her singing along to the ending theme, you wanna kiss that Sailor Moon. And like, just literally, I like wouldn't watch the show anymore after that. Like that's the level I was on of like, nope, not going to get made fun of for liking girls. And to me, it was all an attachment to childhood thing. It was like, oh, like if I like girls, that means I've grown up and I'm never going to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid, like that was my mentality.
Hell yeah.
So I was a staunchly anti-girl up until the point where when I was like 11, 12 and I got really heavily into anime. Again, same cousin who found the porn stash got into anime, and his parents were divorced and he'd been through some shit, and he spent a lot of time as my like surrogate big brother basically. So everything that he got into trying to escape his circumstances became my culture. So we got heavy into anime. We were reading message boards and magazines and all this stuff to keep up with it. And, he was always talking about how like the sexy girls was part of the appeal. Like, he's like, yeah, I'm trying to, he would talk about like hot girls at school and stuff like that. And I always just was like, I don't want to hear these conversations. Don't talk to me about girls. I don't like girls. I don't talk about girls, But as I got more into anime, and started going through puberty, it became more confusing. But this is also where I start to get into the I can't tell which girls I'm attracted to and which ones I just want to be breaks down.
Yeah.
And this is where sexuality gets complicated because like Kagome from Inuyasha, I don't remember seeing her for the first time and thinking she was hot. But I watched 15 episodes of Inuyasha and became a huge fan of the show and loved the character because she's the most relatable character in the show. But she was also like a couple years older than me and really like busty and stuff. So it was like, okay, well, as I became attracted to her personality, I also became attracted to her appearance, But then again, like I would just like rub against stuff and not even like touch myself. Like it's just everything about my sexual expression was odd and off kilter in some way. And then I got the Ranma manga, Ranma 1/2, and that even as early as when I was like 13, I remember being like, this is the superpower I want to have. I want to be able to turn from a male to a woman back and forth. And that didn't mean anything to me necessarily at the time. This was still like very start of puberty. So I turned 14. I suddenly shoot up like 2 feet in height. I become normal height. I'd always been the shortest kid in class every year up till that point. So now I'm suddenly like regular height. I've got facial hair. I started gaining weight and body hair, and all of it was fucking terrifying. And this coincided with me also being heavily online in forums where I was definitely getting catfished in retrospect by someone like, making fun of me. But I was heavily involved in the internet and trying to find relationships and love on there. And my family moved into the inner city of Richmond. And the 6 months that we lived there, I really didn't make any friends at school. Like, I talked to people, I had classmates I could talk to, but like none of them became a friend I ever met outside of school. And up to this point, not unlike you, Robin, I had been bullied a lot, mostly verbally, mostly called names or insisted that I was gay or whatever. And I was also very defensive and very argumentative, but I did not make, like, I basically had like one friend each house I lived in. And usually I was closer with my brother Victor's friends. Like, he would have a best friend that was always around. And so I would mostly just hang out with Victor's friends. But like, so, and my older cousin who I got into anime with. So, when I go through puberty and we move to this place where I don't have any friends and I'm spending all my time online on like the slowest dial-up connection in the world, like refreshing a page over and over again, waiting for someone to say something. And in between that, this was all on my mom's computer that didn't have speakers hooked up to it. So I'd just be sitting in silence, like refreshing a page for hours out of the day. And then I'd go back to my room. I had my own computer that couldn't connect to the internet, but had speakers and had a bunch of music on it. So this is when I got heavy into prog music. And so this was my life, was just like writing emo poetry, contemplating suicide, and hating my body and not knowing, like, I just didn't know, like, I understood when I was in 9th grade, like, this was when I figured out, like, if you want to be like a cool guy, here's what you got to do. Like, you got to do 100 push-ups and 100 curls every day. And like, and start carrying yourself like a badass. But I just was like, I don't actually know who I want to talk to or what's going on. And I think overall, my whole life up until transition was very much defined by my desire to actually connect with girls, like to have female friends, to have girls I could talk to about the things I'm feeling and all the emotional experiences that I like talking about, and not all the stuff that guys like talking about. And thinking that meant I wanted a girlfriend. Like, just thinking that, like tangling the romantic aspect up with the friendship aspect of it in this way that I never made any friends with girls because I was like, oh, well, I'm attracted to girls. And I thought of myself as somehow straight. But, also at this...
Yeah, men can't be friends with girls. You can only date girls.
Right, exactly. And also at this time, though, I was doubting my straightness because I had all these posters on my wall of like Dante from Devil May Cry and Link from The Legend of Zelda, and they were just as attractive to me as all the girls on the posters I had. And so for a while, I thought I was bisexual. I tried dating a guy on the internet very briefly when I was 14 and he was 17. And one day he called me on the phone and I realized he had a really dorky voice and I wasn't attracted to his voice, and I told him not to call me again that night, and he did anyway, so I broke it off. But that was my first experience. Like, the first person I ever dated was actually a guy. So, but because it ended the way it did, and because I kind of just blamed my like, I basically looked at it as, you were so lonely, you even jacked off to the guy posters on your wall. Like, just because you ran out of other stuff to like, that was the way I was looking at it. Was like, no, you just went insane. You just had like a manic break or something during that period. And like, I used to talk about it like, yeah, when I was 14, there's a period where I just like was insane. But what insane meant was like sitting in my room being really sad that I hate my body, like putting on my mom's clothes and, like trying to take pictures of myself where I can't see that I have an Adam's apple. Like, that was me, which all that stuff, if I had known, if Horo Musco had existed when I was 14, or if I had, all these people talking about the stuff online like there is now, I might have known what all this meant, but I did not. I just saw it as I'm bisexual and maybe a cross-dresser. And as I got deeper onto the internet, especially in anime circles, like, so around this time, like when I was 14, this was when I got like really heavily into the internet, and also because I was very lonely and very horny, really into pornography. And I mostly would look at lesbian stuff, and like, I was terrified of dick. I didn't want to see any dick at all. And I always felt uncomfortable in the men's bathroom. I never went into any kind of male like shower, like group showers. I would just refuse. I've never been in a group shower. I avoided all the situations. Like,
God, yeah.
I just so badly didn't want to see any penis or anyone to see mine, so it was like, please, let's just pretend this thing doesn't exist. Again, none of this meant anything specific to me at the time. I never heard of anyone else having these experiences. So, when I got online and got really into the anime community, I started discovering the concept of traps. And like circa me being 17, my Mega Tokyo Forums banner signature is literally just "I love traps" with an exclamation point, and that's it. So like at that time, that was my go-to. That was what I thought of as like, this represents me. And I was also obsessed with trying to write stories about like, characters who are assigned male at birth, who dress as women, who aren't sure if they want to be women yet. And like, I always was trying to conceive of a story where we get to a point where the character finally makes a decision about their gender, but I could never write these stories because I hadn't made the decision yet, and I just didn't know what it means. Like, I couldn't get to that place. And the representation back then was all over the place. There's lots of characters with all types of different identities, but a very common way it was presented in anime was that they didn't want to be this way. They wanted to be a regular guy. They just happened to be feminine, and it's a problem or whatever, which is like more of a fetishistic thing. And I never connected with that, and so I was very like particular. I had to.
You cut out for a bit.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, not for me, but yeah.
Oh, my bad.
It was like I was very particular about what characters I, related to or felt strongly about, like which identity, like how they see the fact that they dress that way was very integral to me. And Horomusuka Wandering Sun was the first manga I read that was like very explicitly exploring these themes. And I probably read it in 2010 I think 2010. So I was already 19. And I read it, and my take on it was not, at the time, because again, I didn't know about trans stuff, was not that this was a trans girl, that this was an undecided person. Like that this character doesn't know if they want to be a boy or a girl. And to me, like when the anime came out, I've still never finished the manga, so I actually don't know like the ending of the transition story. I know that the character, transitions into a woman, but because of the fact that I didn't know that for a long time, that the anime doesn't come to a conclusion, I kept talking about the story like it was about a character who hasn't made a decision. And I remember like getting comments that were like, well, if you read the rest of the manga, like it's an explicit transition, like it is a trans story, and yeah, I got into My Little Pony not too long after that, and so I started seeing more of that Tumblr side of the community, and this is when the trans culture really started like coming to the forefront. But it was coupled with social justice. It was very much like when I was on Tumblr circa 2014, it was like suddenly there was this concept of social justice warriors, and it was mostly being like sort of the way it looked at the time was like it's a bunch of trans people really mad at other people for getting their pronouns wrong, to like a militant extreme. And I thought it was ridiculous. Like, even as somebody who I considered myself an ally, like, because I had all these trans thoughts, all these LGBT, like, I'd been dealing with all this confusion about gender and sexuality for so long that I was constantly promoting anything related to this stuff, and especially the older I got, I was like, yeah, I want to hear trans voices. I want to see trans media. I want to understand this stuff because I want to see what it has to say about me. But because of the fact that the first people who were like, really pushing the terminology and everything were doing so in this militant way, it pushed me out of it. It made me like, well, I'm not like them. So, if this is what the trans people are like, then I'm definitely not one of those. Was kind of the mentality at the time. And then that kind of continued for a while. Until I was posted up on r/trans the Reddit board, which is like a trans people making fun of themselves.
I remember this moment very clearly.
Yes. It was because on at Crunchyroll Expo, when they did the lightning round interview, they asked me, like, what anime superpower would you want to have? And I said Ranma 1/2. I want to be able to change between a male and female freely. And someone made a post that was like, the rare non-binary egg, or no, gender fluid egg is what it said. And I was like, what is this gender fluid thing? Because I had never heard of this concept before. And that was what drew me in, because again, I had always been on this pedestal of indecision, of like, I don't know, I don't know, I feel like I've been surviving as a man, like I've made it this far, how hard can it be? Like, I don't really need to transition, do I? Like, surely there's things about being a guy that I like, that I need to continue, whatever. All of that was like where I was at when I discovered gender fluidity. Was okay, I'm both. I'm bouncing back and forth between the two. Where I eventually ended up, as I examined this more closely, is emotionally, it is important to me to think of myself as a woman. I can't really explain why, and the fact that I was so adamantly against it as a kid makes it feel weird. But everything about the experience to me points to, you were trying too hard to fight this. Like, when that first girl said, "You're a girl," I should have said, okay, and like just been a girl. And none of these problems would have arisen. None of the strife, none of the difficulty. It would have just been, I mean, obviously there would have been problems I would have run into from being a trans girl in a world that doesn't really accept them very much, but I would have had girl allies, because I wouldn't have been rejecting all women in premise, and then being hated by men because I don't seem like one of them. I would have just hung out with girls and been accepted as a girl in the way that I can do now. Certain girls who are accepting of trans women, and it's just it's one of those weird things where I look back on it and it's like. There's an episode of My Little Pony, actually. You guys probably remember. You girls probably remember, since all of us here are girls. The episode, is it Feeling Pinky Keen, I think is what it's called. It's one where Pinkie Pie has her pinky sense. And the whole point of it is that Twilight is trying to figure out how it works. And she can't. And she won't accept that it's real because she can't figure out how it works. And in the end, she finally does. Like, she's just like, you know what? I can't understand this thing, but it's obviously true. That is where I'm at with trans, where it's like, I spent so long, like, running all these tests and figures and trying to figure out, well, why? Like, it doesn't make sense that you should feel this need to, to have this identity. And in the end, I just accept it. It doesn't have to make sense. I just have to accept that it is what it is. And I want to, live as a woman. And so, so that's how I feel on the emotional level. The part of me that saw myself as gender fluid is the part that is like a self-defense mechanism. That's like, well, what are you going to live as an ugly woman? Like, as opposed to just being a regular guy. Not that I was actually ever a regular guy, but like, right. That's the way it was posed in my mind, is like, well, how necessary is this whole transition thing? And so that was the part that was the 1 foot still in masculinity. The part that's like, well, this is all unproven. You don't know what's going to happen if you say you gender transition. But once I started the process and I felt all the affirmation and everything, and I felt the effects of the hormones, and like, then it was like, okay, yeah, this is the right way. This is proper. And, I haven't been able to be consistently on hormones because I've been moving so much and had a complicated financial situation. So, I was only able to do them for a while, but I like the effects and I want to get back on them. Like, it's a thing where I think also I struggle to be open when it comes to sexuality. Like, I sort of dipped in here that I consider myself sort of bi or pansexual. I was a porn addict for most of my, like, from like 14 to 28 or so. Like, I would call myself a porn addict. And in going down the spiral of anime pornography, I've seen everything.
Oh
Like,
no.
I've seen it all. I've seen the every fucking crazy thing that exists on the internet, and I'm totally desensitized to it. None of it means anything to me.
You have stared into the abyss and
I've
seen
stared
cock.
way too far into the abyss. Yeah, and seen cock.
Kids these days don't even know, you know? Like,
Oh, they don't. So yeah, I've seen it all on the internet, but in real life, I've had 3 sexual partners ever. The first 2 were definitely closet lesbians, and the third one is Bird. So, like, when it comes to me talking about, like, actual sexuality, I have really only ever had sex with people who were willing to take the reins, and, like, where I don't, it's really hard for me to, like, ask someone for sex. You know, like, to be the one who's like, oh, I'm gonna, like, I have a purpose in this sexual encounter. It's like, I guess I see myself as more of like a tool, you know, like, it's like, I just want to, if I can get you off, let's figure out how, you know? So yeah, like, I feel, I'm definitely not asexual, because I feel a lot of sexuality, like a lot of sexual urge, but I don't feel like a need, like a sexual need. You know what I mean? Like, to actually fuck. It's weird. I like doing it, but
like you like it, but you could go without.
I didn't think well, I guess for me, the sex is, a lot of it is like emotional affirmation, you know, or like it's such an emotional experience, basically, that, like, if the physical side of, like, feeling horny, oh, now I want to fuck, I don't feel horny and then feel like, oh, I want to fuck right now because I feel horny. I feel like, you know, okay, I could just go rub that out really quick. That's just biological shit. That's not sex, you know. Sex is like a whole conceptual thing. So yeah, and I feel like I haven't dived that far into whatever that concept is. So you know, I feel like I just haven't had enough sex to even say what I think my sexuality really is. Because in terms of looking at pornography, it's I mean, I sometimes I just want it to be funny, you know, or like so over the top ridiculous that I'm like, wow, this is a funny thing to get off to, you know. So yeah. So I don't even know how to talk about my sexuality beyond I'm just attracted to whatever I'm attracted to. You know, retrospectively, I can see all the different stuff that I deliberately, like, distanced from myself and was like, oh, this isn't me, you know. This is stuff for girls because I like it and I don't want to admit that, you know. So therefore it's for girls, and now that I am a girl, it's, oh, well, like, yeah, it was for me. That's why I said that. So anyway, that's my story. Oh, and I didn't come out until I was 28, and you know, so it took a long fucking time.
Yeah. It's never too long, but it's I think there is not a single trans woman who would be like, "Oh, I wish I came out later." It's always sooner.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd say it's about time to wrap this up. Mint, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. And speaking of hearing, you can now call Voidgazers. Go call our voicemail at 202-681-8643 or 202-681-VOID. And you can go follow me on Twitter or Instagram at itsmansalad. Go to patreon.com/ASCpresents for $3 a month in daily vlogs and extended mint salad sauce, plus fansly.com/titsmansalad for extra spicy stuff. So go there. Anyone else want to go?
I've been Trixie the Golden Witch. You can find me on Yig Studio. I do live streams. I do podcasts. Just go to my video. There's a playlist. It's every YouTube video that has me in it. Just go to that and just binge it all. Robin, where do we find you again?
Yes, I'm Robin. You can find me at twitch.tv/InsideAlloy and twitter.com/InsideAlloy.
Asher, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at NapsyLev. I'm occasionally on YouTube. I do very sporadic editing work, so it's inconsistent if nothing else.
And that's it for this episode of the new Voidgazers podcast. Next time, instead of this show, is going to be Voids and Gazers, the Dungeons and Dragons episode, where we all have our heroes and we go on an adventure. It's longer, it's a special. We're going to be out of town after that, going to too many games, so there might be a little gap in the schedule following it. But check that out, check everything out. Thanks again, everybody, for listening and for being on the show. And that's it. Void.